Today in the Full Story channel, we're going to be looking at Nightwing versus the DC Universe. This was a limited run series that came out quite a few years ago, and it's basically, what if Nightwing finally had to take out everyone within the DC Universe? I hope you enjoy this. This channel is where we take audio dramas of videos that we created on our main channel, Comicstorian. We then turn them around and turn them into these giant videos once they're completed. So, here you go. Superpowers are becoming a new weapon of choice. In a world where you can buy abilities on a street corner, who is even safe, and how far will you go for the safety of your family? It all started in Metropolis 12 years ago. The city is destroyed around him, and the sounds of people injured and dying reach his ears as Nightwing tries to calm his breathing. He walks through the destruction. People's questions and fears can be heard from the rubble. Everyone stay calm. First responders will be here soon. He tells them, trying to soothe those around him, but he's stopped short by a voice calling his name, a voice that is usually strong and commanding, but it is now weak, barely above a whisper. What did you do? The words are a struggle as Superman lays there, broken and bleeding, and Nightwing walks away. I'm sorry, Clark. I had to save the world. Now we go to Gotham City in 2040. Breath pumps through his lungs as Dick Grayson chases the old man across the rooftops. You're killing me, Arthur! He yells to the man, ordering him to stop so that they can both rest. But the man doesn't listen and keeps going. A second Crusader, a cop clad in Batman-like armor, springs upon him. But Arthur Light, former villain Dr. Light, uses his powers, blinding the man behind the mask. Dick passes the fallen officers, radioing for help and continuing his chase. Light hits the edge of the rooftop, jumping, his aging body not quite making it. Dick might be getting old too, but he still has some of that circus ability and somersaults across the gap, landing on the next building with ease. Dr. Light keeps going, blinding two more officers before he rounds a corner into Grayson, who quickly subdues him, reading him his rights. Dr. Light pleads, though he's been 2 weeks off his meds. I'm old, and I'm not gonna start any more trouble. But Dick doesn't agree, injecting him, the greenish liquid slipping into his veins, and the officers lead him away. You see, Dick Grayson is a celebrity now, giving press conferences and signing autographs. His former identity is well known as his persona as the head of the Crusaders, and he finally slips away from the crowds, struggling to get out of his tie. It took several years for the laws to pass and the Crusader organization to begin, but everything was worth it. The world is a safer place. But he's late for dinner and he rushes home, passing by a statue of Nightwing, hero of Gotham, erected in the city. He arrives home, rushing through the door, his mind on everything that he has to do before his guest arrives. I'm afraid you're late, Master Richard. He's greeted by the smiling faces of his son and Alfred Pennyworth, whom has already started cooking his dinner. The three sit down around the dinner table, with Alfred telling stories of Dick in his youth until young Jake Grayson is sent away to do homework. While the dinner conversation was about to pass, most of the time they were alone these days, with Alfred and Dick, and the conversation turns to what Dick did in Metropolis, taking away everyone's superpowers, setting up the Crusaders to police those that still have abilities afterwards. It's later that night that Jake questions his father before bed, asking, why did he do it? Why did he take all those superpowers away? Sometimes we make the hardest decisions for the people we care most about, is all his father can tell him. The next day, Dick is pulled away from a crime scene to Jake's school, and the teacher informs them that they have been very discreet and will continue to be so, but taking a deep breath, Dick pushes through the door to the locker room. Jake, still in his gym clothes, sits on the bench, and he turns to hear his father enter, tears falling from his eyes that glow with metahuman powers. It's later that Dick takes his son to the lab of Michael Holt, whose genius is able to run a test on the level of Jake's powers. Jake has similar powers to his mother, Corey, the former hero Starfire. What's worse is the realization that the medical inhibitors that stop other metahuman powers won't work on Jake. He's immune. Dick's mind works in overdrive as he tries to figure out what to do with his son. He can come forward, he can train the boy. Jake can work as a member of the League. It's the only way he'll have a normal life. The two drive home later, the night speeding quietly past them, with Jake coming clean about his powers, how they manifested a little over a year ago and how he hid them from his father, afraid that he would see him as a criminal, as a bad guy. Back home, Alfred and Dick discussed the issue quietly, with Alfred disagreeing with Dick that the boy shouldn't have to become a weapon of the government. Despite their disagreements on things that Dick has done in the past and his work with the Crusaders, both of them love Jake very much. Alfred just wants the best for the boy. The next day dawns brightly, the sun streaming over the back of the house. Dick, his mind finally giving into exhaustion, has fallen asleep at the table. Jake and Alfred both sleep soundlessly upstairs. A detachment of Crusaders creeps silently into the home. And that's when Dick's eyes snap open, his instincts kicking in. "Get away from the windows!" he yells seconds before the explosion hits them. Flashbangs designed to disorient. Dick struggles to his feet as the Crusaders flow into the household. Liz, his second in command, is there, helping him to his feet, his mind still in a daze. "Dad!" Jake screams from upstairs, snapping Dick back into focus. With a simple flip, he is free of the Crusaders' grasp and racing up the stairs. Alfred stands in the way of young Jake, a bat held loosely in his hands, ready to protect a member of his family, as he has done his entire life. Brady, another of Dick's men, has his gun trained on the old man, ordering him to drop the bat, but Alfred has already stepped aside for far too long. He won't let them take Jake without a fight. He raises the bat, prepared to fight, and the bullet pierces his chest. The old man falls to the ground, Jake by his side, tears spilling from his eyes, anger replacing sadness, and the energy beginning to ebb from his body. This isn't the Crusaders' first time with a metahuman, though, as they quickly trank the young child. Dick tries to intervene, but he's knocked away as well. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., Kate Kane receives a phone call from Brady. "It's done. We have them," he informs her. The news of Alfred's death hits her hard, though. At one time, she too worked alongside Batman and his faithful butler as Batwoman. "I'm on my way. Do not engage with Grayson." Brady acknowledges the order from her. With Dick in custody, Kane is in charge. With a pause, Brady looks back at the interrogation room, thinking to himself that Grayson isn't so tough. Screw it. Dick's eyes are on the table as Brady walks in, trying to show some sense of superiority to his former commander. "I just got off the phone with Miss Kane. I'm supposed to make you comfortable. Where's Jake?" It's a useless question because Dick knows where Jake is. Anyone who isn't affected by power inhibitors goes into stasis, just like Brady's dad did years ago. Dick used to understand the sacrifices of the greater good, but he didn't know if he knew that anymore. "We don't need a washed-up hero calling the shots." Brady looks away. His last mistake. The cuffs dangle at Dick's hand, easily picked. Brady doesn't even have time to swear before Grayson is across the table, slamming his head against the wall, his arms wrapping around his neck, squeezing the air out of his lungs. And Brady's world slips into darkness. The three Crusaders guarding the hall didn't last long either, as Dick flipped among them, his old skills coming back. He's through the building and out the window in a matter of minutes, his body groaning as old joints land in a crouch on the pavement below. He slips into the city, disappearing into the crowds of people. Meanwhile, in a suburban neighborhood in Gotham City, Tim Drake is trying to get his kids ready for school when his world is interrupted by a knock at the window. Wordlessly, he lets Grayson in and the two head into the basement. In the basement, the former Robin has a state-of-the-art computer set up. He already knows of some of the events from the news, and Dick quickly fills him in on the rest. The exhaustion of the night finally hitting Dick as he tells Tim about Alfred. Quickly pushing his grief aside, Dick asks Tim for help. Tim always was the best with computers, and in a matter of minutes discovers that the Crusaders have moved Jake to a facility in Central City. Before he leaves, Tim wants his brother to understand that he did the right thing, that the world needed its powers taken away. You see, after Bruce Wayne's death, his identity as Batman was revealed to the world. Seeing the financial gain from this, the board members of Wayne Industries decided to turn the former Batcave into a tourist attraction. The man's crusade was turned into a theme park. Blending into the crowd of people waiting to get in, a Batman hat on his head, Dick quickly cuts through the crowd waiting to see the giant penny and the Batmobile. No one notices as Dick falls from the catwalk, flipping through the cave until he reaches the parts that no one even knows about. The armory. If Dick is going to break into a Crusader base, he's going to need a few things first. Gathering an old uniform, some gear, and one of his old motorcycles, he speeds off into the night. Halfway between Gotham City and Central City, the road is cut by a blinding emerald light. Tires squeal as Dick hits the brakes, the bike sliding sideways. "It's over, Dick. Stand down." John Stewart, member of the Justice League, floating in front of the former hero. But blue lights flash out of Dick's hand as a blast rips through John's shields, knocking the lantern to the ground. The gauntlets that Dick took from the cave work outside of the light spectrum, cutting through John's power like it isn't there. Dick knew that they would send the League. He knew that he couldn't outrun John Stewart. He knew that he would have to fight against his former allies. He apologizes as he reaches for John's ring, but it lashes against him, throwing him across the road. "Over my dead body!" he snarls, but Stewart is yelling in an empty highway. He turns to find the former boy Wonder, the fists impacting his jaw 3 times in quick succession, the energy from the gauntlet pushing past his defenses. Stumbling, he sees not Dick Grayson now, but Nightwing. He lashes out, trying to stop the hero with his hard light constructs, but Nightwing is fast, trained by the very best. But he's also getting old. John destroys the gauntlets quickly, the one true advantage that Grayson had, and Nightwing tries to distract him using smoke grenades to mask his movements, but a giant emerald fan quickly leaves him standing there looking foolish. He's too old, out of practice with this kind of fight. An emerald boxing glove comes next, returning the 3-punch combo. Dick stumbles, beaten now. And John takes another swing, striking nothing but air, lightning crackling the air where Nightwing just was. A few miles away, Dick comes to a stop. What little he had eaten from that day exploding from his mouth. He looks up, his eyes greeted by his former friend Wally West, energy still crackling around him. He's not alone. Besides him stands his wife, Jake's mother, Starfire. Back at the Crusader headquarters, Jake is being kept as comfortable as any prisoner could be. His mind is groggy, though. He watches with dismay at the news of his father's escape. Director Kane enters, her friendly words seeming false behind her military bearing. Jake barely notices her, though. His mind and body are so tired from all the drugs that they have given him. "You should rest, Jake. You'll need to be well rested for the tests to come," Kane tells him gently. Meanwhile, over with Dick, he slowly begins to come to, his vision blurred to those standing above him. The voices he recognizes, though, are voices from his past. "The great Dick Grayson. I say we should have left him." His voice clears and the faces of his former team appear before him. Beast Boy, now stuck in a half-feral form. Starfire, his wife. Lois Lane, a new member and now a Blue Lantern. Wally West, former Kid Flash. And Cyborg, now the Titan Resistance. The team stand around Dick's bed, blue light illuminating them as Lois uses her ring to fix his broken hand. Yet Dick doesn't care about seeing his former teammates. These people have been fighting against him and the Crusaders for years now. He struggles to get up. "I need to get to Central City. I need to save Jake." But Cyborg informs him that Jake isn't in Central City. The Titans have had a mole inside of the Crusaders for years, right under Grayson's nose. Almost like the past, the former team begins to work out a plan. It doesn't make sense that Kane would go to these lengths, would be this public about Jake and Dick's arrest. Why? Why would she do it this way? And almost as if on cue, Vic's computer pings an alert. Vic quickly leads the team through their base to the command center, with Dick suddenly realizing where they are. The city of Bloodhaven. The team has been right next door to Gotham all this time, in his old stomping grounds no less. The screen begins to light up with full-body scans of Jake, taken by Michael Holt when Dick first realized his son was a metahuman. "What are we looking at?" Lois asks the question that is on everyone's mind, and according to the scans, Vic informs them that Jake's powers may well be the cure for the process that removed everyone's powers. The arguments immediately start. "We have to find him! We can undo everything!" Wally's mouth and mind are moving a mile a minute, but Dick is there defending all the good that he has done, informing his old friends that they should not be using his son for anything. Anger flares, fists begin to clench, when suddenly the room is awash in a blue light. A deep calm comes over Dick as he sees a young Jake walking across the room behind him, Starfire reaching out to Grayson. The two embrace, lips pressing together, and just as quickly as it started, the images disappear, and before him stands the real Starfire, battle-hardened and stern. What was that about?" Dick says, almost dizzy, his body giving out as he slumps against a wall. "To soothe you, the blue ring shows you what you want most in the world," Lois explains as Corey moves in to help Dick. The two loved each other once, but now there is too much between them, too many differences. The two love Jake, though, and that's all that matters, and they've decided to go get Jake. Dick will need the Titans, everything else will come later. So, now that they've head out, the team goes back to Gotham. Dick leads them to a Crusader's secret lab, a nondescript building in the middle of the city. And moving fast, Wally manages to incapacitate all of the guards, until they finally come to a door that they can't open. But Corey has had enough of the Crusaders keeping her from her son. Energy pours from her gauntlets, destroying the door and much of the wall that it sits against. A large lab sitting on the other side. Banks of computers lit by tanks where metahumans float in stasis. Wally moves quickly, gathering data as quickly as he can. Lois, too, begins to collect data on the Crusaders' operations. But Dick and Corey pay no attention to their friends as they find Jake lying in a bed still groggy. But he's happy to see his family together. The issue is that happiness isn't going to last long as the room grows cold around them. Lois looks up, her breath steaming in the air, and Wally subtly stumbles as his speed fails him, medical darts appearing out of his back. He struggles to his feet, looking up at the face of Mr. Freeze. Meanwhile, over at the Crusader headquarters, it becomes clear that Liz is the Titans mole within the organization, and sitting in Kane's office, there's little chance of her getting out of this. But she is saved by the bell when an alarm begins to ring. Kate Kane puts together a team, prepared to defend the Crusader labs. But back over at the labs, Victor Freeze's work in cryogenics made him the perfect candidate for the Crusader's stasis program. And now that he is clad in this new Crusader suit, he stands before the Titans prepared to defend his work. The Titans begin their battle. Lois using what offensive powers her blue ring has. Corey using her energy gauntlets to blind Freeze. More energy blasts throwing the villains across the room, allowing the team to regroup. But they're handicapped now as Wally stares at his hands in alarm because his connection to the Speed Force is gone. At that moment, the Crusaders come in hard, entering the room with their weapons up. Gunfire erupting all over, stray rounds hitting Starfire's gauntlets, making them useless. Dick jumps into action, batarangs flying to their mark with precision accuracy. The cries of pain from the Crusaders don't last as Grayson leaps across the room, finishing them off. Freeze, his head now detached from his robot body, returns. Cold blasts firing from his undermounted cannon. Kane and her detachment are behind him, ordering him forward. The team begins to retreat. The Titans can't do this. They're tired. Lois has very little strength left. Wally has no speed, and Corey's gauntlets are destroyed. Think, Grayson, think! Dick thinks to himself. Red light beginning to flood the hallway as Jake's eyes begin to glow with energy. Dad, I think I could do it. Jake stumbles over the words as energy pours out of his body. He pushes it forward, blasting a hole in the ceiling. Unseen, Kate Kane has Jake in the sights of her rifle, her finger beginning to tighten around the trigger. But behind her, Liz arrives, her elbow striking the back of the director's head. Dick stares in surprise as Lois begins to float them away. His last view of Liz is the Crusaders taking her into custody. Back at the Titans headquarters in Bloodhaven, the team is regrouping. They aren't waiting long though, with Lois having already sent word to Metropolis. We can have him there by dawn, she tells him. But Dick stands before them telling them no. Despite everything, he still believes in everything that he has done for the world. He will not allow the Titans to use Jake to undo everything. He won't allow his son to be used like that. He is taking Jake out of here and they are leaving the country. Cyborg points out that Dick is a hypocrite, believing in the system until it is used against him. Simple words become shouts of anger as Corey and Dick begin to argue over what is best for their son, but Jake is behind them. He calmly tells his father that he won't leave the country. He's going to Metropolis because he wants to help save the world and thinks what the Crusaders are doing is wrong. Dick tries to argue more, but Lois has had enough. Using the power of the blue ring, she blacks out Dick. Now, the drive to Metropolis isn't the most enjoyable of road trips. Everyone sits in moody silence as it becomes clear that while he agrees with them, Jake is not happy with his mother's choice of leaving them when he was a child. But more on Metropolis. Which was once the greatest city in the world, it now stands as a wasteland worse than Gotham ever was. Gangs slipping from the shadows and alleyways to assault the team once they enter the city. Luckily, Metropolis still has its protector. The Man of Steel, now clad in armor to make up for his lack of powers, throws the young punks around. Lois doesn't hesitate, and the two quickly embrace. Leading them through the city, Superman takes them back to his base of operations where they meet his partner, Lex Luthor. Once worst enemies, Lex and Clark now work together to fix the world that Dick changed. Jake questions the Man of Steel while Lex runs his tests on his blood. Jake asks if Clark hates his father for what he's done, but Clark doesn't. He knows why Dick did what he had to. Clark stares off into space as the memories of the day that he killed Batman, his heat vision slicing through his skin with no effort, come back into his mind. What he did under the influence of the black kryptonite still haunts him. Deeper in the base, in a cell that now holds the conscious Dick Grayson, he manages to reach out to Kate Kane with a hidden phone. He doesn't want to hurt his friends, but Dick has no choice, and he makes a deal. After the last few days of exhaustion, the Titans try to rest while Lex finishes the tests on Jake's blood. Corey tries to reach out to her son, but he isn't interested in speaking to the woman that left him and his father. She walks out with sadness written on her face, and Wally is relieved when whatever Freeze did to him to cut him off with the Speed Force was undone quickly by Lex as well. Finally, everyone tries to settle down to get some rest as night falls over the remains of Metropolis. Jake's eyes snap open as a hand closes on his mouth. It's not surprising that Dick managed to escape his cell. "Do you trust me?" he whispers, but of course, Jake does. Dressing quickly, the two slip soundlessly throughout the base, finally reaching an exit and stepping outside. It's there that they're greeted by the Justice League. John Stewart, Red Tornado, Captain Atom, Azrael, and Captain Cold, all led by Kate Kane. Jake is stunned. What did you do, Dad?" He stumbles over the words as Dick explains that he did what he had to. Jake struggles. He doesn't want to betray the Titans, but Dick is his father and is going to do what he thinks is best. Using some more tech, he knocks his son out with a subsonic pulse. Jake falls wordlessly into his arms. He doesn't have time to argue, and after informing the League that Starfire and Lois are asleep and the location of Superman and Lex, Dick places Jake in a car and drives away. The words of John Stewart ringing in his ears as he leaves. "Congratulations, Dick. You saved the world. Again." Back in the base, neither Lois nor Corey can sleep. Lois is worried about the cure, while Corey is saddened by her son's attitude towards her. But they have no time to discuss their issues. The wall explodes behind them as the Crusaders come pouring in, weapons trained on the heroes, as John Stewart calmly enters. "You're outnumbered, Lois. Stand down," he orders, his eyes ablaze with green light, blue light beginning to emit from her ring. "You're forgetting how these rings work, John," she smirks. Outside, the Crusaders look up at the side of the building as it explodes with blue fire, Crusaders falling outward and crashing around them. In his control room, Lex sees the destruction on his cameras, as well as the other Crusaders storming through the building. They still need to power up Superman, but they need to buy some time. If only they had a small army of robots, and Lex smiles. "I wouldn't be Lex Luthor if I didn't have an army of robots." As the car speeds away, though, Jake finally comes back to consciousness. Struggling against his seatbelt, he begins to argue with his father. "I'm going back! I have to help!" But Dick won't have it. He's getting them out of the country so that Jake can finally be safe. The world has always been broken. Dick tried to fix it, but it will always be broken. Tears fill Jake's eyes as he turns away from his father. "This is my fault." But it's not. And that's what Dick is trying to tell him. Jake thinks that it's his fault because he can't help his father the way that he helped Bruce. And Dick is stunned. He never knew his son felt this way. Jake just wants to help his dad see the good in the world the way that he helped Bruce see the good in the world when he was Robin. To be his light in the darkness. He wants to be as good as Robin as him. Meanwhile, back at the base, the Titans and the League have locked in combat. Blue and green light battle in the sky, Wally facing off against the frost of Captain Cold, Corey, despite having no powers, facing off against her former ally, Red Tornado, all while Luthor's robots combat the Crusader units. Bullets fly, powers fight. The ground shakes. The Titans regroup. They can't hold them much longer. They need Superman! Instead, a car pulls up and Dick and Jake emerge ready to help. There's no time to explain as Wally zips Jake to the lab while he tries to hold in his lunch. Strapping him into the machine, Lex begins to return Superman's powers, energy beginning to pulse throughout the lab as Clark's body begins to glow, and then he collapses as his powers return in full, feeling overwhelmed by them, a tear rolling down Lex's cheek at his greatest achievement. And then he presses a button. Clark is stunned. What did Lex do? But Lex will not go back to a world of powered and unpowered people. Everyone will be powered. He apologizes to Clark, exiting through a secret door. And Clark can see it now, his X-ray vision having returned. The base is a bomb, designed to give everyone in the world superpowers, but it will vaporize everyone in Metropolis in the process. Superman can stop it, but he needs Jake's help. Meanwhile, outside, the battle is raging on. Dick locked in combat with Kate Kane, a battle of physical strength and ideological differences. The fight is stopped as the building explodes behind them, though. The two flying figures emerge, Superman and Jake. Superman moving fast, his speed having returned to him. And Jake warns the group. They need everyone's help to stop the bombs. This is the moment that everyone comes together. There isn't even a hesitation. because heroes do what they do best. Taking charge, John Stewart orders Lois, Red Tornado, and Atom to help him and Superman lift the lab to get it away from the city. The rest are on crowd control. With their combined strength, Superman begins to lift the very ground around the lab itself. The bomb is massive and they have very little time. Bringing it into high orbit, it explodes above them. But the heroes are all shielded by Lois Lane's Blue Lantern ring, and they return to Metropolis perfectly unharmed. With the cure discovered by Lex Luthor, the powers begin to return to the world. The government was a little slower though. It would take 5 more years before they weren't illegal. Kate Kane retired from military service shortly after as well. Not all fences could be mended though, and while they stayed friends, Corey and Dick never got back together. They loved each other still, and they were both in Jake's life. After retiring from the Crusaders, Dick spent most of his life helping teach children to use the powers that they were born with, seeing it as a way to atone for his past mistakes. Jake might have gone on to be a superhero, but he did have a family of his own and hoped to pass on the lessons that he learned from his father to his own children. And there you have it, today's full story. I hope you guys enjoyed, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell right here on this channel, as it will only ever be receiving full stories from the other channel. And if you want to see the videos as they come out, make sure you go check out the Comicstorian main channel, where you get 5 days of videos a week. I'll see you next time.